Howdy, remarketing fans, welcome back. It's time to add our Google Analytics tracking tag to our website and verify to make sure it's working before we start processing the data from our website visitors. We're going to begin by adding our tracking code to a WordPress install because that's the most common implementation that most of you are probably using. The first thing we're going to do is go back to that admin section, go into our JS tracking info tracking code, and we're going to copy all of this entire JavaScript tracking tag. Here we are in our WordPress dashboard. Most of you are probably familiar with how the back end of the WordPress dashboard functions, how it works, but we're just concerned over here with a couple different features. As we've said before, because this is a global tag, we want to make sure that this tag is on every page of the website. An easy way to do this is by adding this into the footer or header section of the site, because your footer and header are on every single page of your website in most cases. To do that with most WordPress installs or most WordPress themes, you could simply go to Appearance and then down to Widgets. In your widget sections, you'll usually have some header widgets that you have in your header, and you'll have some footer widgets as well. So for example, if I were to expand footer widget 1, we have some text here. I would add another text widget, which is arbitrary text or HTML. It could really go into, you could add text, you could add HTML, and this is a perfect place to add your tag. So I'll drag that over into my footer widget section. I'll open it up. I'm going to leave my title blank, and I'm going to Command V and paste in my Google Analytics tracking tag. And I'm going to go ahead and click Save. So that's one way to add the Google Analytics tracking tag in the footer. You could also remove it from the footer, and you could also add it to one of the header widgets if you're using the header widget. I typically like to add the Google Analytics tracking tags to the footer of the page, just so there's no conflict when the page loads. Sometimes if the server is responding slowly or if there's a lot of traffic to your site, by having the analytics tag in the footer, you ensure that it's global, it will track your audience visitors, but it won't interfere with any page loading. But it doesn't really make that much of a difference in most cases. Whatever you're more comfortable with, whether it's in the footer section or in the header section, is fine. So we'll paste it back in here. If your specific WordPress setup does not make use of these dynamic widgets, for example, your theme might not make use of them, you might have a custom theme where you don't have access to these dynamic widgets, that's fine. There are other ways to implement the Google Analytics tracking tag. If we remove the tracking tag from the footer widget, we can go into Appearance and we go to Editor. The editor files where you actually have access to the HTML template files of your theme. So you're going to go down and select the theme that you're using, click Select, and you're going to look for your header.php file. To do this easily, you just do Control F or Command F, and we're going to type in header.php, and it'll find it for us right down here. So I'm going to select header.php, and in between the open and closing PHP brackets, you're going to go ahead and add your Google Analytics tag. And this will be adding the Google Analytics tracking tag to the header of the site. And once you click Update File, that file will be updated, and the code will be in the header of the site. So we can go ahead and click Update File. You could do the same thing by searching for the footer.php file if you want your Google Analytics tag to be in the footer of the site. There is yet another way to add code directly into your site. There are a lot of different plugins that just simply allow you to add code. So one of those plugins is called Code Insert. If you see that, I already have that installed over here. If you want to add this plugin, you're going to go over to Plugins, Add New, and you're going to search for Code Insert. I'm going to show you the plugin section in just a moment because we're going to go ahead and add another plugin in a minute. But if you want to use this plugin, you go to Code Insert, click Add New. You type in the description of your code, so you could just write in Universal GA. Its status is active. You could choose the header, the footer, where you want this page to be. So let's say we want it to be in the footer. Priority, you could leave blank. Insert on pages. You're going to select all pages. Will apply. You could hide this tag from certain users, which you don't want to do. And then you want to just paste in your tag right here. Beautiful. Click Save Changes. And now your tag is added this way in this Code Insert section. Because I already added it in the template file, I'm going to go over to my inserts, and I'm just going to simply delete this tag over here by clicking Delete and clicking OK. And now it's gone. There's yet another way to add the Google Analytics tracking tag, and that's via the use of third-party plugins. The third-party plugins typically use just your UA tracking ID to insert your JavaScript tag. It connects to Google Analytics servers, and it installs your tracking tag via your Google Analytics UA ID. Some people find this much easier. I personally don't like to do it this way because I try to minimize as many plugins as I can. Oftentimes, The more and more plugins you add, the slower your WordPress site is going to get. The styling and the JavaScript and the codes of different plugins could sometimes conflict with each other, and you could just get yourself into a big mess the more and more plugins you add. So I try to minimize as many plugins as possible. But a lot of people use it, a lot of people like it, not a problem. So you go over to plugins, add new. And we're going to just simply search for Google Analytics. We'll go to search plugins, and we'll type in Google Analytics and hit enter. As you can see, there are lots and lots of different plugins that you could use. But really straightforward. This plugin is a plugin that I've used before. It's very easy. It's very straightforward. So we're going to go ahead and click install now on this first plugin. And we'll click OK. I'm getting a prompt to back up my database, but I'm just going to click no thanks, and that I already did this. You're going to get a prompt to activate the plugin, so go ahead and click activate plugin. Once that plugin is activated, you're going to find the settings for this plugin under your settings fly down menu. So we'll click on settings, and we're going to go into Google Analytics. This is the new plugin that we just installed. And look, it's just asking you for your simple web property ID. To get that UAID, that was that first ID back in Google Analytics above your JS tracking code. So you just go over there, copy it, and we're going to paste it right here and click Save Changes. Settings saved. That's all you need to do. Now this Google Analytics property ID is saved via this plugin. Now obviously we have this Google Analytics ID now tracked multiple times on our site because we also added it in the template file. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it from our template file. And to do that, you just go back to Appearance, Editor. Once again, you select the theme you're using, and you search for that header.php file where you added the code initially, and we're going to remove it from the PHP because there's no need to have this. You don't want your Google Analytics tag firing on your site more than once. We're going to click Update File, and now we're good. Now that we've covered 3 or 4 different ways to add the Google Analytics tag in WordPress, we want to make sure that this tag is actually firing on our website. This is a really easy process, and there's a number of ways we could do this as well. So let's jump over to our live website, adventureppc.com. This is where we track the plugin. The first and foremost easiest way to see if Google Analytics is firing is just simply go to your real-time reports in Google Analytics. Real-time reporting in Google Analytics is super, super cool. You actually see exactly who's on your site and where they are. So over here we see 3 people using our site, which indicates to us that our Google Analytics tracking tag is working. It is indeed firing. If your Google Analytics tag was not installed properly, you won't see anybody real-time on your site because the data wouldn't be processing. But there are a couple other ways we could see this from the front end. So let's say we were to go back to our homepage. There's 2 plugins, there's 2 Chrome extensions using the Google Chrome browser that I really like to use to check on contained tags. One of them is Google Tag Assistant. You could find this in the Chrome extension store by clicking on the menu drop-down in your Google Chrome browser, more tools and extensions, and searching for Tag Assistant. But I already have it installed up here. So if I were to click on Tag Assistant, I'm going to click on Enable, and then I'm going to refresh this page, and this tag is going to show me all the tags contained on this page. If I click down, I'll see all the different tags that are firing. So we have Google Analytics over here. We have a couple different instances of Google Analytics because we are just using this as a test account right now. So it's really duplicating our own analytics account from our main install. But the best way to check this out is just by matching this up with the UAID. You just take a look at that UAID, and then you go back into your admin section. You go back to JS tracking info, tracking code, and you'll see that it's the same ID over here. So you know that your Google Analytics tag was installed properly. There's another really interesting plugin that lets you see all the different scripts and tags that are running on a page, not just Google-related scripts and tags, called Ghostery. Many of you are probably familiar with Ghostery. It's once again another extension found in the Chrome store. It also could be used for Safari, Firefox, Internet Explorer, other browsers. So you click on the Ghostery tag, and it'll show us all the different tags that are running over here. We have Google Analytics. If you click the drop down, it'll show you the different functions that are firing on that tag. And that also confirms to us that the Google Analytics tag was firing successfully on the page. I would also recommend clicking around to different pages on your site and still making sure that that Google Analytics tag is firing. You could follow your Google Analytics tag via Tag Assistant or Ghostery, or you could go to a specific page. Let's say we were to go to live online training on our site and we were to go to Google Analytics and go to reporting. I would want, and go back to real time, I would want to see somebody on the live online training page, which is right over here. That's me, one active user, and that just makes me feel very confident that this Google Analytics tag is firing properly. Now, if you're using an e-commerce shopping cart system like WooCommerce, like Magento, like Drupal, like Shopify, like BigCommerce, like PrestaShop, all of these CMSs have a built-in place for header and footer code injection. That's where you want to look. We don't need to go through every single shopping cart because it's the same process. Magento and PrestaShop and BigCommerce and Shopify, they all have tons of plugins that are also like the plugin that we used that allows us to easily add the UAID number and link to our Google Analytics account. But you're also able to add the entire JavaScript tag directly into the header or footer code injection section of your e-commerce shopping cart or your WooCommerce install or your Shopify install. It's really the exact same process. There's just two things you need to keep in mind. If you're adding it into the page template, if you're adding the code directly, you're not using your UAID number. You're using that complete JavaScript tag that we showed over here, where we added it to the footer or header widget, or we added it to the page template, or we added it via code injection. You're using the entire thing, and it should go preferably in the footer, but also in the header is fine, as long as you're making sure that it's going to fire on every page of your site. So that's how to install your Google Analytics tag. That's how to verify to make sure your Google Analytics tag is working on your site. And now that we got all that boring technical stuff out of the way, we don't need to worry ourselves with this tag anymore, and we can go ahead and start collecting, tracking, and segmenting out our audiences. But there still remains my favorite method for adding the Google Analytics tracking tag to your website, and that's doing it via Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager is an extremely powerful piece of software that Google released. It's free to use. I'm going to show you how to use Google Tag Manager to add the Google Analytics tag. And it's important for us to get into Google Tag Manager because Tag Manager is going to be the software we're going to use to start doing some advanced audience segmentation. For example, scroll depth and those YouTube video plays and pauses. That's all going to be done and set up customized through Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager is going to save us time. It's going to help our pages load faster. It's going to keep all our different tags in one place. And it's the easiest, most efficient way to add the Google Analytics tag and custom events and so on and so forth and all the different things we're going to use to your website. In the next section, we're going to start talking about Google Tag Manager. We're going to go into our Google Tag Manager account. We're going to add our basic, regular Google Analytics page view tag. And then we're going to start doing some cool tips and tricks to build out some really advanced audience segments, like the scroll depth, like the YouTube clicks, plays, and pauses, like the outbound link clicks, things like that you guys saw a sneak preview of in the very beginning of the course. Thank you very much for sticking with me through this one, and I'll catch up with you guys soon in the very next section.